Charlotte itched to check her money in her duffel bag again, just to make sure it was safe. But it might draw unwanted attention, so she made herself breathe deeply in and out, and resisted the urge. She'd bought a ticket to Miami because she wanted to go somewhere warm. She was so tired of the cold weather here in Maine. Now that her husband was gone, there was no reason for her to stay. No job, no house, no ties to anyone else here. She decided she could be alone anywhere, so it might as well be somewhere warm. A month before their bitter breakup, she'd drawn all the money out of her bank account, all $40,000 in cash. Early this morning, she'd put the money in her duffel and boarded the train at Freeport, hoping that the beaches in Miami were as sunny as she'd seen on TV. The train pulled into the Philadelphia station almost 10 hours later, jolting Charlotte awake. Not sure what had woken her up, her hand automatically went to her coat pocket. Her phone was missing. Heart pounding, she looked carefully at the seats around her. No one sat near her. The seats were mostly empty. An elderly lady sat about 4 rows behind her, dozing. Charlotte started as a buzzing noise sounded nearby. There, in the empty seat across the aisle lay her phone, still on vibrate. Cautiously watching as she stood, she reached for the phone. Someone had stolen her phone out of her pocket and placed it on the seat, as if wanting her to know that they'd taken it. Were they still watching her? Later, in the dining car, she glanced up as a man in an overcoat got up from his seat and left. He had his back to her, so she couldn't see his face, but something about him seemed familiar. The waiter chose that moment to ask if she'd like a refill, and she told him she would. When she looked up, the man was gone, but the memory niggled at the back of her mind. Why had he seemed familiar? Stepping off the platform in Miami, Charlotte breathed a sigh of relief. Reaching the hotel room, she felt for the packet of money in the bag and set the envelope down along with her keys and passport. Everything was fine. She breathed deeply and opened the envelope. Inside the envelope was cut-up pieces of newspaper in the shape of U.S. currency. On top was a handwritten note.
You didn't think this was yours to take, did you, hon? When I left, I said you'd get nothing from this marriage, and that's what you've got. Enjoy your life, what's left of it, and don't even think about trying to ever come back to Maine. I'll make sure you regret it.
Suddenly, the memory of the man in the dining car came back to her. She knew now why he'd seemed so familiar.